What the f*** do you mean what am I talking about?
Out here talking
You! Minor league mother is what you are. I'll tell you guys something right f***ing now. It's not easy to be a f***ing champion, all right? It's the hardest f***ing thing there is to do. Are you guys that f***ing good? You're not. I'll tell you that right the f*** now. Wise up. Buddy, go ahead and say what the f*** you want to say.
We've got a ton to say, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like it's been a month. This has been a long week of agonizing Mets baseball. Welcome to 86'd, the Wally Backman Show. I am Bruce Jacobs, and of course, there's our World Series champion, proudly wearing. Are you wearing your uniform, by the way, Wally? How are you today, sir?
I am wearing my uniform. I'm trying to give them the best luck that they can have. It's been a long time. Let's see what they can do. Since I wore this uniform, the Mets played really good. So
yes, they have.
We're hoping today.
Yes,
we're hoping
they have.
Today that the biggest game of the year is today.
Well, you know, Wally, I've come to this unscientific conclusion. If it's true that worrying a lot makes you lose your hair, I'll bet you the baldest population right now is Met fans. I bet you if you're able to do a quick study, there are more Met fans that have become bald in the last week. I mean, this is, it's been remarkable, and we're going to go over some of it. Now, we record this show on Thursdays, so we're coming to you before Game 3 against the Milwaukee Brewers tonight. It's Tobias Myers and it's Myers and Quintana, Jose Quintana. We'll talk about the game, and we'll get Wally's prediction on tonight's game as well. And hopefully baseball will continue after this. If you want to get in touch with Wally, we've got a lot of opportunities for you on social media, and we've got some great social media reactions today that we'll get to in the third segment. If you want to get a hold of Wally on Instagram, it's at Wally_Backman86. Facebook is at Wally Backman. On X, it's Wally_Backman6. We're on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, youtube.com/The Wally Backman Show. And if you want to get him on email, it's the Wally Backman Show @gmail.com. Also, Wally is with two organizations. If you're a collector or if you want to hear from Wally with a personal message, you can get him on Cameo and also Past Pros, two separate places that you can get messages or signed memorabilia. We'll get more into that and give you some details on that. But there's plenty of places to get in contact with the show. And also, and I can tell you as someone who's gotten a Cameo message for a birthday gift, Wally, the Cameo is phenomenal. Nothing against the Past Pros, but the Cameo is phenomenal.
No, it's really good, Bruce. It's, you give personal messages to people that have been fans or whatever. And it's just personalized where you can actually talk to the individual herself, which is, I think it's important. I mean, fans are what the game is all about. It's not about us as players. It's about the fans that support us. They pay our salaries, basically. I mean, MLB pays our salaries, but the people that are involved, the diehard fans, it's just a really good thing for them because it gives us an opportunity to talk to them.
We'll have many more details on how to get with Cameo or Past Pros or get in contact with social media. We've got a great guest coming for you in segment number 2, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most unique nicknames from Long Island and St. John's University, also known as Sweet Music. He was Wally's pitching coach in Vegas. Yes, Frank Viola will join us in the next segment. And Wally, that's when I really started covering the Mets. That era of Mets baseball wasn't that pleasant. But, I look at that, and real quickly, I'll just say this. The Mets traded Rick Aguilera, Kevin Tepani, or Tepani, however you want to pronounce it, and a guy named David West, who was a hot shot but never turned out to be much, for Frank Viola, I'd make that same trade today, Wally. I mean, that is an outstanding trade when you look at it on paper. Even though the Mets gave up 2 good pitchers, Frank Viola was an all-star. And so we really look forward to talking to him. And your best memory of Frank as a pitching coach?
No, Frankie is my best memory is we were in Salt Lake and I said, you got to go get that guy. You got to protect your pitcher. And he had bad knees. He's had knee surgery since, and he took off out of the dugout. He tripped, he fell, and, we'll ask him later, but he tripped, he fell, and I says, Frankie, you got to go. And he had dirt on his face, and he went out, screamed with his son. This guy is one of the most lovable guys that I've ever played the game with. So his desire to win, things like that, was just great.
Yeah.
Bruce, I look at I love him, but we'll talk to him later. But as we go into high heat,
it feels like, Wally, it
ask
feels
you-
like it's been a month since last week. So much has happened. We've got some videotape for you as well. We're going to break it down this way. We'll get to tonight's Game 3 against the Brewers. Win, and they play the Phillies on Saturday. Lose, and it's go home. Wally, the reaction to Game 2 is interesting because some are questioning the Mets' heart. I got to tell you, Wally, that Game 1 in Atlanta last week, if you question this club's heart, I got to frankly just be very honest with you. You don't know what you're talking about. You literally, you cannot always say they lacked heart when they lose a game. This team went into a place that's been hell for them and won, in my opinion, one of the 5 most exciting Met games in history. And, Wally, it had some shades of 86 and Game 6 against the Astros. It was that good.
100%, Bruce. What I seen happen in that game from the 7th inning on in Game 1 in Atlanta reminded me so much of ourselves in 1986. And we know what happened in 86, and I think we were a better team in 86. I think we had more intangibles, but I think this team has got a lot to show for. Again, I would have loved to have managed that team. I was in line at one time, but I got to tell you, Mendoza's done a great job with these guys. They compete every day, and they don't lose until the 3rd out is over in the 9th inning. So, I commend all these players that are playing. A lot of them I had, but that doubleheader against the Braves, the way that game changed in the 7th, 8th, or 8th and 9th inning showed real big character of the New York Mets. So, from there, who knows? There's so much to talk about today. Give me your thoughts.
All right. I want to get into Carlos Mendoza and you as a fellow manager and the decisions he's faced, but I pulled out a couple of plays from the Atlanta game that I wanted to go over with you, okay? Obviously, the Iglesias play, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but one of the unheralded plays, Wally, in the game came in the 5th inning. The Mets are losing, can't fall behind any further, and Pete Alonso, who will not remind anybody of Keith Hernandez or Don Mattingly, okay, or Gil Hodges, made arguably the best play on defense he's ever made as a New York Met. Let's go to the videotape here. We have this one for you, Wally. And it looked at first like his foot did come off the. This is a remarkable, not a good play, for a big man like him to make this play. Let's go to the videotape and take a look at it. And as it's rolling, once it's done, Wally, give me your thoughts on this play.
And the curveball dribbled down in front of the plate. McGill picks it up and throws wide, and Alonso stayed on the bag. Lance Barksdale with the call. We'll see if the Braves challenge. But if Pete indeed did stay on the bag, that's a remarkable play.
He did.
That's an unbelievable play, Wally, from a big man. And he's a good first baseman, but, I don't know that he's Gold Glove. Wally, that play right there, Olsen's on second, and who knows what happens. That is a huge play that goes under the headlines. Thoughts?
Well, I agree, Bruce. Alonso is known for his bat. He is not Keith Hernandez at first base. I will tell you that. But you know what? Guys step up. They make great plays, can change the playoffs. And you know what? That play by Pete might have been the play that changed the opportunity for them to beat Milwaukee. But that's not the play that I'm looking for. The play that I think changed the whole game is what I want to see is the one with Iglesias.
All right. So let's go. Now, this is, as it turns out, this is a 5-run hustle play. This is not just a hustle play. This play wins the game, in my opinion. Let's go to the videotape. And, Wally, they teach you don't slide head first, but proving that you never should say never. Let's take a look at this play. And as described by Gary Cohen, this is a remarkable play by Jose Iglesias.
With the wall more.
Yep. And that ball was smoked, almost 102. Oh, that play flagged down by Hoskins. Leads over to Payamp. Safe. And here comes the run in as Taylor is able to score. And we're tied up at 4.
All right, my bad. That's ESPN's coverage. Wally, you also slid into first base, head first, in the post. Did you tell your players, hey, don't slide into head? Is that something that, I'm not going to say preached, but let them know, listen, you don't slide head first into first base?
I think, Bruce, that it's instinct. It's just the moment that you're involved in. But I did it against Houston when I think it was Charlie Kerfield that I faced, but I dove in. Hal Lanier, the manager of Houston, comes out and complains about me being out of the baseline. And you know what? They called me safe. That's all I cared about. But this play with Iglesias, this shows, and we've talked about this before, his importance to turn this team around. And with him doing that play, if he runs straight through the bag, he's probably out. And the Mets are probably done. But with what he did as a player, just gives you those little intangibles. And this is what he brings to the table. We talked about the difference between him and Martinez and Vientos when he came up here. That was a huge play. This is what won not only Alonso's play at first base, but what Iglesias did. Those two guys won them this game. There's not even a question in my mind that those two things that those two gentlemen did won this game for the New York Mets.
Yeah, and then, of course, Frankie comes through with the 2-run home run that, frankly, didn't look like it was going out at first. It just looked like a fly ball to center field. And, in fact, Gary Cohen, it was almost just like a mundane call, a fly out to center field, and the ball just kept traveling. We're going to get into Diaz. Obviously, he yacked it up and then found the intestinal fortitude to shut the door on the Braves' last at-bat, and he figures very, very prominently in Game 3 in Milwaukee. Now, Game 1 in Milwaukee, the Mets won 8-4. Okay, one thing I do believe in over the last 3 games, Wally, the doubleheader for Game 1 against Atlanta and the first 2 games against the Brewers, I don't think the pitching has been outstanding, but I do give the pitchers Severino, McGill in the Atlanta game, and last night, one thing I do is hanging in there, man. Without their best stuff, they were able to hang in there and keep the Mets in these games. Talk about having a pitcher who's scuffling a little bit, doesn't have their A stuff, but keeps you in the ball game.
Well, I think, Bruce, that it's huge for your offense. the Mets have a great offense. I really believe that 1 through 9, they're really good. And so if you keep those teams giving them a chance, the offense can do the things that they did. I mean, we've seen in that Atlanta series, in the Atlanta game 1 to get to the postseason, what those players did and accomplished with, I'm not going to say mediocre pitching, but Diaz basically shit the bed. And for those guys to overcome the things they overcome, to be able to be in the postseason, I think if the Mets lose game 1, I think they probably lose game 2. But
Totally with you.
The pressure was really on the Braves. And so what they accomplished in game wins to overcome the deficit they had after taking the lead, and then Lindor hitting the 2-run homer, and we've talked about it. I'm a Lindor fan, but he really proved that he is no question the most valuable player that the New York Mets have today, and he's worth every nickel that he's gotten. So I'm waiting for today. I'm still wearing my jersey. Ever since I went to the jersey, these guys have had some success. So it's time. It's been 30 years or 40 years, whatever it's been, since the Mets won a World Series. I'd like to see him sneak in.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about managing in this deciding game tonight. I'll get to that, and specifically with the usage of Diaz. Wally, last night there was some criticism that Carlos Mendoza did not go to Diaz for the last 6 outs, maybe 5 outs. You have any criticism of Carlos Mendoza for going with Phil Maton in the 8th and then Diaz in the 9th?
Not really, Bruce. And I'll tell you why. Because as long as I managed, and I get it, when you get to postseason, guys have to step up. But, we kind of seen, it's not like Santana when he threw his no-hitter. He threw way more pitches than he was supposed to throw, which they come up with, and we'll know with our next guest how many innings that Frankie threw 10 years in a row. So numbers weren't really an issue back then, but I think Diaz threw like 20 some pitches the day before in Milwaukee, and he threw about 50 pitches. And I know he kind of shit the bed, but he finally went out for the 9th inning after pitching the 8th inning. He did it. But this guy needed rest no matter what. And you have to take the player's career. You got to look at the player's career. And I think that's what Mendoza did. Do you suffer from not going farther in the postseason? Maybe. But you still have to have a heart for your players. And I think the fact that what Mendoza did was the right thing. I think tonight we will definitely see Diaz if need to be. So
could we see Diaz, happens. Wally? Let's say, Maton's scuffled a little bit his last few outings. He really started out great as a Met, and it's, slowed down a little bit. Here's the thing I say to the Met fans. What are you watching that you're calling for Diaz? Okay, the guy is a basket case. I mean, getting 3 outs is a problem. Forget about asking him to get 6 outs or 5 outs. But tonight, Wally, it's do or die. So I ask you this. How soon, because to me, and we've discussed this, Lindor's the MVP, and we could talk about this guy and that guy. This Met team goes only where Diaz takes them, which means I also don't think they'll win the World Series because I just don't think he can take them there. But let's deal with tonight's game. What is your plan as the manager? What is your plan? How fast are you on the trigger with Quintana? And how fast are you to get Diaz in the ball game? And would you use him in a game-altering situation if it was, let's say, the 6th inning?
Well, sometimes the games are saved in the sixth, seventh, eighth inning. So you still got to get through the ninth. But uh, with Quintana, I think if this guy, we know that the Mets have a seventh, eighth inning, and ninth inning guy, and Diaz is the ninth inning guy, and sometimes the eighth and the ninth inning guy. But we paid this guy $100 million. So you're going to win and lose with your closer. There's no question about that. You're going to win and lose those big games, even in the postseason, with your closer. So Steve Cohen paid this man a lot of money, and I'm a little nervous myself.
Yeah.
But I think that you got to go to him, because if you don't go to him, the media is going to tear Mendoza apart. And even knowing that what Diaz has done this year, it hasn't been very special. We've seen what happened in Atlanta, and the Mets overcame that. So I think you got to use him. I really think that he's the guy to get the last 4 outs if it's a 1-run lead, and the rest is going to be history. I'm not real confident in it, but the New York Mets have paid him a lot of money to do this. He missed a year. Hopefully he gets back to the form that he was the 1 year with the Mets when they first got him. I don't know if that's going to happen. The kid throws 100 miles an hour. He's got a great, big, sweeping slider. He's a low 3/4 guy, and it's tough on a hitter. So time is going to tell. The game is only a little bit away.
Well, I tell you, Wally, I don't have any nails left, but I do feel like it's 86 with Jesse Orozco fumbling around there with Kevin Bass and Hunter and those guys, and Hatcher, not Hunter, Hatcher, and some of those guys. I would be very careful, knowing that they have to have Diaz perform well, but also knowing that he is a mental basket case. But they have to have him tonight, and I have zero doubt we're going to see him tonight.
They need him. I don't know, Bruce, what the matchups are when you get late in the game against each individual hitter, but sometimes you got to play total matchups, and that might not include your closers. So we'll just see what the matchups are tonight, see how it goes, and go from there. Hopefully the Mets are playing the Phillies here.
Oh, I hope so. All right, we'll have more on this. Just been an incredible week. Wally, it's also been a very sad week. I know you told me this a while ago when we first started this show. Like a lot of young people, gravitate to Pete Rose. Love the way he played. Pete passed away this week. Seems to be a heart attack. Really kind of sad. He was all alone at the time. Give me some thoughts, your thoughts growing up, and did you know Pete, and wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah, no, I knew Pete very well. We were friends. I would say we were friends. I was a lot younger than Pete. We had some really good encounters as players, and we had good encounters off the field. What a great player, I guess you got to go back to Bart Giamatti and all those people, but what Pete did on the field is second to absolutely no one in this game of baseball. Now, the only player that I think might be able to do something like Pete Rose did is Ohtani. So, but that's not, we don't know with longevity, but, my heart goes out to Pete, his family. I've known Pete for, I'm 65, 40 years, whatever, longer than 40 years. So, great player, I think a great human being, and anybody that wanted their sons or daughters to play the game the right way, watch the way that Pete Rose played this game. But God bless him. God bless his family. Great person.
Let me hit you with one thought and see, and I don't know, you can say if you want, if you have a moral opposition to gambling. I don't. But, I understand, there are rules for the times. And back then,
sure,
gambling was taboo. And, the NFL, they suspended a couple of players for a year. Paul Hornung amongst them, great running back for the Green Bay Packers, because of his association, Alex Karras, who played for the Detroit Lions. Anyway, You know, the times have changed. Baseball is making millions of dollars from gambling companies. Who is the hypocrite? And, you know, God bless baseball, but to not have the greatest offensive player in the history of the game in the World Series when you're taking millions of dollars from gambling companies nowadays, I find it to be outrageous, Wally.
You know what? I can't agree with you more. If we go back in time to the 40s, the 50s, what players did then, and then there was back then there was the drinking issue with players. Then it went to amphetamines. Then it was to steroids. There was always an issue in different eras. And my thoughts are there'd be a lot of guys not in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for those certain things that they were able to do. I think we got to look at the eras and what made those eras so great. I think, to go back to Pete, what he did on the field is second to none. What he did as a manager with the gambling, it was wrong. But what Pete Rose did on the field, if he's not in the Hall of Fame, then nobody should be in the Hall of Fame.
I will say this, Wally, and there is no proof. My last thought on this, there is no proof that he bet against the Reds. Now, I'm not saying it's okay to bet on your team because you can abuse your pitchers because you need to win the bet. So I'm not saying that it's okay. But, I mean, if he bet against the Reds, then for me, he never sees. But there is zero proof he ever laid 1 cent on the opposition. And again, I have to say, if you're going to take money from the DraftKings and all those, and that's fine, I'm not opposed, then you know, it's time to drop this nonsense. And now, unfortunately, you know, he's dead. And you know, I just think it's really sad, Wally. Just a really sad that baseball's greatest
very
hitter.
Sad day the other day very sad day the other day with Pete. And so, you know, I know he lived in Vegas and did a lot of things. And you know what? I can't say enough about Pete Rose because he was my idol growing up because of the way he played. And from my understanding, knowing Pete, he never bet against his own team because that just wasn't the way that Pete was.
Good point.
What he did was wrong, but okay. Everybody says get a second chance. Pete, even myself in managing, we never got a second chance. So, you know what? God bless Pete. God bless his family. I feel for everything they're going through. I am still a Pete Rose fan.
No, I'm with you. And he was also my first villain. See him and Bud Harrelson in 73 in the National League Championship Series. Wally, last thing in high heat. The White Sox did not set the record. The Mets are still in the record book for ineptitude. The White Sox beat the Tigers 2 out of 3. Of course, Detroit was playing for nothing. They had wrapped up their postseason spot on Friday. You know, I don't know. I don't know. In today's baseball, you know, let's put it this way. I could see a team losing 120 games in an era. I mean, it's hard to do, but I can see it. In today's baseball, Wally, with the talent so dispersed in free agency, to me, and maybe this is the Met fan in me, this is far worse. Their 121 losses and is worse because in today, you should never be that. You can go out and acquire players, unlike in those days. Okay, just no big deal. The White Sox are large market. This is, I think they're the worst team ever. The record doesn't say so, but when you consider the era and the big money and the market they play in, I think they're the worst team ever. So screw you, White Sox.
There's no question. It's the worst. No question this is the worst team because first rounders, second rounders, third rounders, you know, back in the day, those scouts were traveling all over the country. Now everybody knows about everybody. So everybody's on the same page in the scouting system. So I remember going in my first year with the Mets, going back when I managed in 2010. You know, I went to the draft, and they got all these names on the board, and you just cross them off, if somebody else takes them, and then you take the next best player. So that didn't happen previously. So I don't know what the White Sox did. I managed for the White Sox for 3 years, and they still have some scouts there that I 100% totally respect. But whoever's doing that, the White Sox a few years ago was supposed to be this big upcoming team with all this young talent, but Jesus, to lose 121 games. Everybody knows I fish. I may jump off the boat 40 miles out in the ocean and see if I can swim all the way back to shore. But
you know what else everybody knows, Wally? Everybody knows that you were a pugnacious, feisty guy. Boy, I would not want to be around you losing 120 games, man. I would have gotten
I probably would have gotten in a fight with teammates, Bruce. I would have tried to start a fight against another team. I would have done a lot of things just to try to make us a little bit better. If you're going to lose 121 games, if I can make it to where we only lost 100, that would be an accomplishment. But to lose 121 games, come on, for God's sakes, this is 2024. There's no question that the White Sox are the worst team ever in baseball in 2024.
All right, coming up, we got some sweet music for you, ladies and gentlemen. Frank Viola, St. John's product, is going to join us. It's 86'd, the Wally Backman Show.
Frank Viola. Similarly, Viola was 6 and 6 at the end of June, but finished with a flourish to win 17. His confidence shining through in front.
All right. As promised, it is a pleasure to bring to the forefront today. There he is right down there. Of course, Wally up there. Former Minnesota Twin, former New York Met, and I want to say loud and proud, although I didn't go to school, former St. John's Red Man baseball player, the great Frank Viola, joining us on the program today. Frank, I'm Bruce. You know Wally. It's great to have you. Good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure. And I know Wally had some Wally's ready to challenge you, man. He's ready. He said, hey, I got Frankie on, and I'm going after him.
That doesn't surprise me one bit. For the 4 years we worked together, that was the same way every day.
You know what, Frankie? I mean, I appreciate you coming on the show. It's fun. I got so many questions for you that I'll never get through them all, but probably go to the first thing. I'm not going to go to the sleeping yet, but I'll go to that here shortly.
Save that for
what do you got on the playoffs this year, buddy? You see, I'm wearing my Mets shirt.
Yep.
I'm hoping that they kind of pull it through. They haven't won since 86. What do you got on this playoff race?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Since the Mets let me go in 2018, I have not been a big fan of Major League Baseball just because of all the changes, the analytics and all that stuff. So I'm not going to be able to answer it as well as I could have back then. But that being said, I love the story. They've been struggling the last few years, front office wise, managerial, all that other stuff. They seem to have finally pieced it together. They look like they're comfortable. I think the big thing is you have the Brandon Nimmo's, you have the old school guys there that are helping guide the new guys. And then Lindor has really stepped up his game this year. I think they put themselves in the position, and it's a 1-1 tie with Milwaukee now, but to give themselves a chance, if they get through and win the game and win Game 3, I think they have a chance to go far in the playoffs, no question.
Yeah, no, I agree, Frankie. I think that Lindor's been huge, but there's always that unsung hero, and today, of course, is the final game, and I think it's Quintana and somebody else. Who's the other guy pitching against Quintana? I think it's Myers or somebody like that. But
Tobias Myers.
And so, they skipped Peterson, who's had a big year, but a lot of ups and downs. Did you have Peterson at all, Frankie?
I did not. You did not.
Okay.
He was a first round draft choice. I met him in spring training. That's when we were working together the last year in Vegas. Good kid, good head and shoulders, great college program. Really struggled this first couple of years, but I'll tell you, here's what I'm going to tell you about left-handers, being that I was one of them. They always say left-handers peak later than righties, and I think it's a maturity factor. I'm still an idiot, even at 64 years old. So Peterson's taken a while to really piece it together, but his stuff is prime, and he's finally getting head strike one and pitching his ball game, and it's made a world of difference. He's had a hell of a year this year.
He really did. You know, I hated left-handed pitching because I couldn't hit you guys because you guys were weird. You just threw from a different side. I didn't like that at all, and I was a switch hitter, but you know, I'm sure that people know everything. I'm looking at your career, Frankie, right now, and I look at, you know what, you were the MVP of the World Series in '87. You won the Cy Young in '88. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me what went through your mind, because I have another question, and then I want to let Bruce ask a question after that question. But you know, you and I got to play together partially in '89 when I got traded to Minnesota. But you know, I'm looking at some statistics of you that are they're stupid. I mean, they're that good. And the Frank Viola I know and love is a guy that I seen sleeping on a bus.
Dude, it's a long life, man. You got to take advantage of it when you can. So you sleep when you can. No, you know, to be perfectly honest with you, Wally, it's funny because I always thought that I had, I don't want to say greatness because it wasn't a great career. It was a very good career. I always thought I had that in me. I always had that belief. But it wasn't until Johnny Padres, who I don't know if you ever had an opportunity to meet Johnny, but Johnny changed my whole life around. I was a successful pitcher, but Johnny was the one that told me that if you don't come up with a changeup, something off speed, and we've talked about this a few times when we were together, you will not have the career you're capable of having. And it took me over a year to learn the changeup. I had 12 different grips. I finally came back to the original one, which was a circle change, which a lot of guys still throw today. A very awkward pitch, but once I figured it out and was confident enough to throw it, it changed my whole career around. And I know you will tell everybody the same thing, and I think that I'll just say it this way, and then you could just say yes or no. But you said the toughest pitch for you to hit was a good changeup because it looks like a fastball, but if you have contrast off of it, you don't have enough time to make an adjustment. And that was what happened in my career. I threw that changeup, and all of a sudden it changed everything. Because I didn't have to 2-0, 2-1 throw that fastball. I could throw a changeup. I had them off balance. All of a sudden they were playing to my game instead of me having to play to their game, and it changed my whole career around. In '87, '88, '89, '90, those were the years that I was really, really successful because of that transformation.
Yeah, no, Frankie. I mean, there's no doubt. Changeup. I don't think that there's a player out there that will say a guy's changeup is the hardest pitch to hit. You know, if it's 12 to 15 miles off your fastball, it looks like a fastball, so it's the toughest pitch to hit. You know, there's to me, there's no question about that. You know, I mean, here's the other thing, Frankie. Let's, you know, I'm going to talk later about the playoff stuff and things like that. But one of the questions, you were a pitching coach, and we were together for 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. And we had good teams when we were together, but you know, do you know you did 10 years in a row?
What's that?
You pitched more than 200 innings 10 years in a row. It's unheard of in baseball. One year it was, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. I do. Let me just take a peek at my phone. I know you threw 265 innings or. No, you never did.
While you're looking that up, the one thing
261 innings was the most pitched in a year. But to pitch over 200 innings over 10 years, that doesn't happen in baseball. And they're so concerned about players throwing too many innings now. And I know when we were together in Vegas for the Mets and AAA that we had to get our prospects, if there are bullpen guys, like 70 innings, which is not easy to do, but we did it.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I know that you're in Minnesota's Hall of Fame. But Frankie, you should be a fucking Hall of Famer, buddy.
No, I mean, I appreciate it. Thank you. But I don't believe in that just for the fact that I don't think the wins and losses hurt the 176 wins. But, you know, you got to be in the right place at the right time, Wally. You know that. And
No, you do.
The thing I'm most proud of, and, you know, and I appreciate all the kudos you're giving me and stuff, but the thing I am most proud of is, and a lot of people don't realize this, was I went 12 and a half years in the big leagues without missing a start. You know, that's a pretty good stat in itself. I mean, you talk about Cal Ripken and his run. That's a fantastic line. But for a starting pitcher to go 12 and a half years, I'd like to go match that up against anybody in the history of the game. I bet you I'd be right up there in that regard. But what that tells me is God took care of me. I took care of myself. You know, those beers that I did drink, they were damn good for me. It might not work for everybody else, but it worked for me. You know, but I'm just saying, in all sarcasm aside, I was blessed to be able to have an arm that I was able to rebound from. You know, when I was hurt and I was able to pitch through it. I didn't know the difference between pain and soreness, so I just said to hell with it. I'm getting paid to go every fifth day. I'm going to go every fifth day. Unfortunately, God gave me that ability to do that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing when I look at your career, not knowing because we played at the same time pretty much, but right. It's amazing looking at your career, what you accomplished in, you know, we got a short time in '89 to play together, and then you got traded to the Mets, and we sucked in Minnesota that year. But no, it was a good time, and you know, you and I coaching together, it couldn't have been better. I couldn't have had a better pitching coach. I know you're still coaching. I'll get back to that a little bit later, but I kind of want to turn it over to Bruce. I want him to ask you a few questions. I have a few more, but I know that he's chomping at the bit. He always is, because he'll start bobbing and weaving. So I want him to ask you a couple of questions. And I know, you know what, Bruce? I'll ask you. I wanted to ask you one real quick thing before I give it to Bruce. So I know you live in North Carolina. Now you got a home in Florida. That hurricane was devastating. Everything come out okay?
Yeah, fortunately for us, yes. The waves got to 10 feet in Crystal River where we have our home. Fortunately, our house is a little above ground, so it hit the house, but it did not do inside damage. It did external, but internal. So, I mean, we could live with that. In North Carolina, we were blessed. I mean, there's some areas in North Carolina that just got killed. But we, once again, we're very fortunate. So, yes, to answer your question, we're doing okay. Thank you. But we're praying for everybody else involved because it was pretty devastating stuff.
Well, I care about your family and your wife. I care about your family and your wife. I talked with Kathy a long time, but I'm going to turn it over to Bruce. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah. I can't believe Kathy loves you as much as she does. I don't know what the hell's wrong with her.
She's only human, brother. Here's Bruce.
Hey, that sounds like a good song title, Wally. He's only human. Frank, it's a great pleasure. When Wally said you were coming on, I was really excited because the Met team that you played on that's like the first team that I really got into covering, you know, when I was in college and everything. And but I don't want to talk about the Mets right now. I want to talk about this. First off, most important, how's your health?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
You know, back in 2014, when I was going to first coach with Wally, and at that time, Georgie Greer was our hitting coach. During spring training, they diagnosed me with an enlarged aorta. It was about 2/3 of the way through spring training. So they shut me down, opened me up. I had open heart surgery. Everything went well, but I ended up missing the first 6 weeks of the AAA season. And during that 6-week period, not only did Wally and George get off to like a 28-5 start, our pitching coach who took over for me ended up getting smoked by a ball, and before a game in Tacoma, we almost lost that guy. You know, a lot of stuff went down, but fortunately, I was able to come back. And my first game in Vegas, when Wally and Georgie were there, Noah Syndergaard was making his first start for me, as far as me being my first game as a AAA pitching coach. And in around the fifth, sixth inning, Wally told me to go out to the mound to talk to Noah because we were struggling a little bit. So my first mound visit after open heart surgery, everything else, I go out to the mound, and here I got a 6'6" donkey that I look at him. I'm about ready to talk to him, and the guy's got snot hanging out of his nose. You know how you have a rabid dog that's got all that white foam around?
Yeah. All that foam.
He's got all that stuff formed, and I have to go, dude. Before I can even talk to you, please wipe the crap off your face. I couldn't even talk to the kid. But I mean, that was my debut in the AAA, and the rest of the time we just had a hell of a time. And I don't want to blow smoke up while he's asked. I know you want to talk to me a little bit more, but you're talking to a gentleman that if the game, for however you want to dictate this game, if things played out like they should have for Wally, you're talking about a guy who should have been a 25-year, 30-year Major League manager who would have known how to put winning teams on the field at any time with anybody because he gets it. You know, he's an old player. He understands how to get along with people. He understands how to get along with players. I wish the baseball gods would have taken care of him better, you know, and it's still not the end of the world, but I really would have loved to see what Wally could have done as a big league manager because I think you're talking about one that could have been the best, and the damn guy can't even get his foot in the door. It's a shame. It really is.
Yeah. How was he as a strategist, Frank?
Oh, you know, I was blessed. I came up with Tom Kelly of the Twins. And Tom Kelly was one of those guys that and this is now the American League with the DH and everything, but he'd be looking 2-3 innings ahead of time to see possibilities, scenarios that might play out, to get a pinch hitter ready, to get a pitcher ready, so on and so forth. Wally has the same attributes. He understood. I love sitting next to him, thinking and listening to him think out loud, especially the couple of years he was with George Greer, because you're talking about two unbelievable baseball minds, and it was so much fun hearing them. And it was great for me because, the time my pitchers were out there, Wally was in having a cig because he knew he didn't want to watch damn pitchers anyway. So I got to be able to run my pitchers. So it ended up working great all the way around. So, yeah, I mean, it was a blessing to be able to work around Wally and be around Wally and those guys and learn the stuff I learned.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners and viewers, we'll get to the Mets in a second, are New Yorkers. I am one, and I love the Mets. But here's something else I love about you. You played at St. John's, and I love St. John's basketball, and I love Rick Pitino. Frankie, do you still follow the basketball?
I follow the basketball more than the baseball, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, I follow St. John sports as a whole, but I've always been the biggest fan of me has been the basketball program, from Louis Carnesecca all the way through the Lap Chick tournament, all that stuff. I mean, the way I made extra money my few years in college, Johnny Franco and I both, the way we made extra money was we worked as ushers during the basketball games. So we got to watch the best of the best. This was prior to the Big East. This is when we were an independent team playing, all the powers be. Got to meet Raleigh Massimino, John Thompson. I mean, you talk about the guy that was at Syracuse for years, Jim Boeheim.
Jim Boeheim, yep.
It was just incredible St. John's basketball. And I was there my junior year. My last year at St. John's was Chris Mullen's freshman year. So we got to talk, we talked about a Hall of Famer that we got to watch as players, via other sports. So it was a really great run over there and a lot of fun. And Pitino is needed because I think since NCAA basketball has changed so drastically over the years, the Big East has become, I mean, it's powerful in its own right now. But I mean, when you look at kids today, they want to get out of New York City, and it's tough to keep those New York City kids around. I think Pitino is that guy that can make things happen and put St. John's back on the map as far as basketball is concerned, in my opinion.
Oh, totally agree. If anybody can do it, he can do it. Two last questions, Frank. You mentioned before with Wally about the changeup and how it, just did great things for your career. Why is the changeup so hard to throw?
I think the negative that you have to go through to get to the positive is frustrating as hell. I mean, honest to God, the first time I threw my circle change, Johnny said, let it go. And I let it go, and it went 30 feet right into the ground. Didn't even get halfway to the mound, to home plate. It's just a funky feel pitch in your hand, and it's something you have to do and dedicate to every day. And a lot of guys, especially in the game today, you're short-circuiting it because the game today is power. Throw 100 miles an hour. So you're forgetting about your delivery, you're forgetting about your mechanics, and you're just trying to throw the ball as hard as you can. And in trying to do that, you're forgetting that there are other pitchers you have got to put in the mix to get to be able to be as effective as you are with the other pitchers. So I think the dedication to the pitch and having somebody sticking with me and telling me I have to keep on throwing it was probably the biggest thing that got me over the top. And the one thing
Interesting.
I pride myself on as a pitching coach over these last 15, 20 years I've been doing it is I try telling them the same thing. Every day you got to go out there and throw it. Even when you're long tossing, you have to throw it. And eventually it'll come to you. And when it does, the few guys that have been successful with it, it's made a difference in their careers as well. So it's just a pitch that you just have to stick with.
Yeah. Let me ask you lastly about the Mets. Now, you came post, the 86 championship. One thing I feel like, and I felt at the time, the Mets made so many changes. You, Eddie Murray, Bobby, frontline, big names. I felt like it was too much, and the chemistry never settled in. Tell me something. I don't know how much you wanted to play for the Mets. Do you regret playing for the Mets in that time at all?
No, not at all. I mean, I grew up a Met fan. I mean, 6 years old, I went to my first Major League Baseball game. It was at Shea Stadium with the New York Mets. So to be able to trade, I mean, don't get me wrong. Looking back, my 8 years with Minnesota, it was very tough to top. And Wally was only there for a short period of time, but the people there were special. And it makes a big difference. All of a sudden now I'm going from a small market, which had 2 beat writers and one TV coverage channel, to New York, where I get traded. I get to St. Louis the first day there. I got 30 beat writers. And you say something, and the storyline from the first beat writer to the 30th beat writer is totally changed because of how you say things, when you say things, and so on and so forth. So that was the biggest change. But being able to say I grew up in New York, followed the sports, knew what the sports was all about, helped me as far as the transformation there. I think the biggest, toughest part of my time in New York, it's easy when you're successful because, everything comes easy. The last half a year that I was there before I got let go of spring training in 91, I had a god-awful second half. I mean, I was totally horse crap. And rightfully so, people got on me, and it was frustrating. Even from there, it's still frustrating because you go into the ballpark, leaving tickets for friends and family, and you can't back it up. I mean, that's the frustrating part about New York, New York City, Boston, all the big market school teams. But you live with it. And as long as the beat writer, and I'll tell you this, the beat writers in New York were, except for one guy, and I don't want to use his name, but most of the guys critiqued me on my performance. And hell, when I stunk and they told me I stunk, I agree with them. One guy got personal, got involved with the family and stuff, and I think that's where it's out of play because family has nothing to do with your performance on the field. And that's the frustrating part about that. But all things considered, I was a New York boy, loved to play with the New York Mets. But it was very frustrating because the talent for the 2.5 years I was there was off the charts, and we couldn't put it together between the white lines. And I'll tell you why. I think the biggest reason was the personalities class. We had a whole bunch of personalities there, and everybody wanted to be the guy, and it was very, very difficult for those guys to put it together within the line. And the second part of it was in 89, 90, I guess it was the Greg Jeffries period. And Greg Jeffries turned out to have a hell of a career. But what the Mets did as far as making him the superstar before he even made an appearance on the field, I believe, and it's just my opinion, but it really irked the veterans of the ball club who were there for years and years, and they were being put on the back burner because of the superstar kid who hasn't done a damn thing in the game yet. And I think that frustrated a lot of people. It worked, and it ended up playing itself out. Greg had a fantastic career. But you notice his career really took off after he left the Mets. But, it's tough. That New York market's tough, man. And if you don't play it right and it doesn't go right, it's real easy for things to go off the rail. And those couple of years I was there, I was frustrated because while he was on the 90 Pittsburgh team, they had no business beating us. We beat ourselves more, and what they did was they put it together when they needed to. Jim Leland was a fantastic manager with the players that he had, and it really worked out well for Pittsburgh, and kudos to them. And shame on us for not being able to do that ourselves.
Great pleasure to talk to you, Frank. I'm going to throw it back to Wally. God bless you and your family, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bruce. Nice talking to you.
You know what, Frankie? I got a couple more questions, but you know what? I'm thinking fastball, changeup, and I am still. Greg Jeffries could hit the way that he came into the big leagues.
100%.
was a little weird.
Yeah.
And
You would just
did
be-
you want him playing second base for you?
No, he wasn't very good defense. Here's the thing too, and I'll follow it up because I think that's a great point.
He was
Jeffries
terrible.
at second defensively was awful.
He was
But
fucking
then you
terrible,
move-
Frankie,
but
at
then you
second
had to
base.
move-
I don't care. I'd tell him if he's sitting right here in my house right now, I would say, Greg, you're the worst fucking second baseman I ever seen. And for a guy like you, not a huge strikeout guy, but enough strikeouts. Fuck, when he's playing second base, you got to get strikeout.
Yeah, no,
You
I
know,
needed
so,
help. I needed help. But the other thing too that went with that, Wally, was
You know-
that when they put Jeffries at second, they moved Juan Samuel to center field, and Juan Samuel was the worst center fielder ever.
Terrible. Terrible.
Defense
Defense is the key. That's why the Mets today.
tremendously.
That's why the Mets today with Lindor at shortstop, Iglesias. Now I managed against Iglesias the year before we were together when I was in AA, and I thought he was the best shortstop I ever seen.
I
And,
agree.
and there's
I
a
agree.
play that there's a thing that he did in the playoffs against Milwaukee just the other day that proved to me that he's not just a defensive guy; he's also an offensive guy. But you know, I look at those things. I got just a couple more questions, Frankie. I know you're driving home, buddy. Are you driving or is your wife driving?
I am sitting. We are parked. We are parked, so I can do this the right way.
You know what, Frankie? Here's a story that nobody knows except you and I.
Okay.
Salt Lake City.
You're not going to embarrass me.
Hey, I want you to tell the people about
I
Salt
hate you,
Lake
Wally.
City.
Oh, God damn it.
I know, I love you,
Worst
though.
story ever.
I always have. Salt Lake City. Do you want me to start it or do you want to explain it?
I'll take it from here, sir, because you're going to make it worse. Let me make it, and then you can finish it off. So we're playing a game.
I have only one more question after that, Frankie, but that was the best. You know what? You were the best pitching coach I've ever had. So you explain this because, I mean, it seriously brings tears to my eyes. I never laughed so hard in my whole life.
I still tell the story every day because if people want to hear a good one. So we're playing in Salt Lake City. We're playing the day game, and we're getting our ass handed to us a little bit. And earlier in the game, the first base umpire threw one of our players out. I think it was Matt Reynolds or somebody. Then later on in the game, the home plate umpire threw somebody else out. The only one that hadn't thrown anybody else out during the game was the third base umpire. And it's around the 6th, 7th inning or what have you, and something happened, and my pitcher got pissed off, and he got pissed off at the third base umpire. And Wally will tell you, we have to protect our players because it's really, you don't want them to get involved with umpires if you can help it. So I start chirping from the dugout, and as you can see, I talk a lot. I'm loud and obnoxious, and I'm just going off. And that son of a gun turns around and throws me out of the game. Now, I got to set it up this way. It was prior to having my knee replacement, so I'm hobbling all over God's green earth because I could barely walk. And in Salt Lake, you got these steps, and I look at Wally, and I got thrown out, and Wally he looks at me, goes, "Go get him, Frank." And I'm like, son of a bitch, I don't want to go out there, but all right. So I go to the end of the dugout, and on my second step, I tripped on the goddamn stairwell. And I had nothing to protect myself with, and I go face first into the dirt on the freaking field. So I'm laying on the dirt on the side of my face. I get up, I feel the dirt all over the side of my face. I looked out the dugout. Wally and everybody's laughing at me, and he's pointing like, "Go get him!" And I'm like, I got two choices. I got either A, just get up and go to the third base umpire and continue this on, or just put my head between my tail between my head, and go turn around. I said, nope, I'm not going to embarrass. I'm going to go out there. So I get up, wipe my face off, go out to the third base umpire, and I looked at him, and I said, I don't have a damn thing, but I'm just not going to make Wally get on me if I don't come out here. And I just turned around, walked back to the dugout, and the whole dugout was rolling. And it was like the most embarrassing moment. I had that was one of the two most embarrassing moments in my career. And it was, fortunately, not too many people were there at Salt Lake to see it, but it was pretty humiliating. And Wally had a bird's eye view of that. He's the son of a bee that got me out there to do it.
I love you, Frankie, man. You know, I got Bruce. Do you have any other questions? I only have one last for Frankie.
No. Nah, well, actually, yes. What is if that's one of the two most embarrassing? You opened it up.
I did. All right.
You did, and I'm a media guy, so I have to follow it up. What's the most embarrassing?
All right, and I'm pretty proud of this one. I'm pitching in front of 55,000 at Yankee Stadium, and I got Lou Piniella to pop out to third base for the third out of the inning. So I'm walking off the field, and I don't know if Wally remembers me because we didn't play that much together, but when I walk off the field, I don't pay attention. I put my jacket on, put my towel on, turn around and sit down. So I turn around and sit down, and I'm looking around the dugout, and there's not a soul in the dugout. And I'm looking on the field, and all my players are still out in the field. And I looked at the scoreboard and realized that was just the second out of the inning. So I had to go back out there and miss everybody and get the third out of the inning. Unfortunately, I was able to do that, but that was pretty humiliating too.
That's a good one, man.
Thank you. So those were the two. One was a player, one was a coach, but those were probably the two most embarrassing moments in my career with uniform on.
My last question. I don't even know if we mentioned Sweet Music, wherever you got that nickname. I really don't care. But you're good, Frankie. My last question to you, Frankie, is well, no, I know you're inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2009 by the Twins, which well-deserved. How you were never the pitching coach for the Twins. I know you interviewed one year when we were playing, and
right.
I'm still shocked at what some of these people do. But hey, what would you tell kids coming up in life? It could be the minor leagues, could be, they all want to be baseball players. What would you tell a kid coming up? What is the most important things to do? Because we know that not everybody gets that opportunity,
right?
To play. But what would you tell a kid, Frankie?
I think it really is. It's really stay focused and have fun. If you really have a dream of doing something, you gotta go for it. And if you don't have fun doing it, you got no chance of succeeding. I really, and you have to have your family backing. You have to have somebody there that's on your side that'll help you walk through it. Before I got married, Kathy and I have been together for 40 years. We've had a nice run. Before I got married,
100 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, I called my dad if I had a bad outing, and my dad would put me in my place. Hey, Dad, I thought I threw pretty well. I gave up 5 runs in 5 innings. Hey, son, you pitched like crap. Go out there, work on it between games, and go. I mean, he told me the truth. Yeah, and I was one of those guys that. You know me, Wally. I wasn't the hardest ass guy as a player. I went out there and I competed and stuff. But if I didn't have the toughness of a lot of guys in the game. I had a lot of guys around me that protected me. But I wasn't always that guy that's gonna knock you on the ass because I feel like doing it, like a Roger Clemens. If I hit you 85% of the time, it was a purpose pitch, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. It was just, hey, you got my plate. I'm trying to get you off my plate. This is what I'm going to do. I mean, there's other guys in the game. Nolan Ryan, he wasn't afraid to throw you at you. He wasn't afraid to throw it at your head. I couldn't be that way, and that was frustrating in itself a little bit. But you know what? I had fun doing what I did for all these years. That's why I'm still coaching today. I love being able to make a difference. I love giving these kids an opportunity, A, to get there, or B, to get back there. And that's why I still do it. I mean, when you were with the Ducks those 3 years and I was with High Point, I used to love coming to play you guys because I got to talk to a purist about the game of baseball. A lot of guys don't give a crap about the history of the game anymore. They don't follow it. They don't know anything about it. I like going back. That's why I love having Georgia Greer around all the time with me at High Point. We talk so much BS about the game and how it's changed. But it keeps us sane too. So, the game's changed, but it's also the game of baseball. If you don't have fun doing it, you don't play it to the best of your ability, you're not going to ever have a chance.
No, you know what, Frankie? You got Jamie Keefe as your manager there in Atlantic.
Wally 2.
Wally 2.
He's Wally.
I try to teach the kid, but
the stories
you pissed me off because I tried to get you as my pitching coach then. but you're too close to home, which I understand. George was our hitting coach, and fucking great guy. George is a great guy, more knowledgeable in baseball than I'm telling you anybody ever met. But
agree.
Anybody, but Frankie, I'm not going to talk about when I talked with your wife yesterday when she picked up your phone, what you were doing. But again, I'm going to thank you. You know, that's a personal thing. That's between you and I.
It's called it's called IBS, dude. Sometimes you have to go and you have to go.
You got to go when you got to go. But all right, I'm going to let you go, Frankie. I appreciate it. I thank you. I love you, your family, and I know that everything is good. So I was worried about the hurricane and stuff like that. But again, love you, brother.
Hey, whoa. Before I go, I want to know everything good with you and your family.
We're great.
It hasn't been the easiest year.
I took this year off. I took this year off so I could. I go to Arizona for 3 months. My wife and I do in a motorhome. Then I go to the coast and I fish. And you know what it was like in Long Island. I don't have to brief you on that. And I still had that 1 year left in my contract. What's that?
The game misses you, man. Just don't forget that.
No, I love the game, Frankie. And I got a chance to come back this year to a place in New York in a different league. And you know what? I took a year off and I'm thinking, God, I miss this game. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know where you and I should be, and probably not going to happen. I mean, you're about my age, 64. I just turned 65, but it's a shame the way that baseball's gone, but baseball's still a great game.
Agreed.
It's a fucking team effort. Do it.
Boy, I thoroughly enjoyed that, Wally. I got to tell you, growing up a Frank Viola fan, and I can't say his tenure with the Mets was everything I wanted it to be. I'm sure it wasn't what he wanted it to be, and many Met fans. And, he told you right there, the last half of that season, he wasn't any good and the Mets were miserable. Boy, I would like to have seen him pitched with a good Met team and a good Met clubhouse. That clubhouse, as he mentioned. I mean, Wally, we're talking about some of the most Kevin McReynolds, Eddie Murray. I mean, Eddie's a great player, but a miserable guy. Just so many miserable guys in that locker room. It was a horrible place. It was not fun to cover either, Wally. Have you ever played on a team like that?
You got to have that camaraderie, Bruce. You have to have those intangibles amongst players. And, baseball is a funny game, especially today. The veteran players, they make so much money today. They don't, I shouldn't say all of them, but I'm going to say they don't know the importance of what I'm wearing on my finger. And that's why you play baseball, is to be a champion. And I wish there was more players, and I wish I could say that all players think that way. But the game has changed a little bit with the money that players make. And I'll even go one step farther. A guy that's making tons of money, who's the Mets, definitely the MVP, making lots of money in Lindor. This guy wants to win. And I'm going to watch him tonight, and I expect big things out of this kid tonight.
Okay. This is a social media segment, and we give you many outlets to get in touch with the show. Leave questions, comments. We've got some good ones we'll get to in just a second. If you want to get a hold of Wally, there's a lot of opportunity to do it. You can get him on Facebook at Wally Backman, Instagram at Wally_Backman86. On X, it's Wally_Backman6. On YouTube, it's youtube.com/The Wally Backman Show. And, of course, on email, The Wally Backman Show @gmail.com. Wally can also be found on Pass Pros, which he'll tell you about, and a great, I'm not discounting past pros, but having used Cameo or having had a Cameo message sent to me, it's just a fabulous thing. Tell us about your involvement and how people can get a hold of you if they want some memorabilia or if they want you to send a message to a loved one. How do they do it?
Well, Cameo is a big thing. I've done it for probably 4 years now. And you know what? It's about birthdays. It could be about anything. It's just a personal message, a personal video to the individual, which I know that you've had one, Bruce. But it's kind of an exciting thing. I think Cameo came up with a great thing. All the athletes, basketball, every sport, these people are on it. So if it's for a birthday or if it's for a business to talk to the individuals that the business owner owns, it's really a good thing. Past Pros is a more of an autograph thing. And what people don't understand is I get so much stuff in the mail, and I know there's players that get way more than me. But with Past Pros, we're all guaranteed to sign this stuff, and it's not, you can go to a card show. I'm doing one for $50 an autograph. With Past Pros, it's only $15. So the people actually send it to you. You sign the autographs for them, and they get what they want. And one of the things that I really want to mention to the people with Cameo and Past Pros is a lot of the money that I get, which isn't a great, big, huge deal of money, but it could be significant to certain individuals, is Tunnel to Towers is where I really like to donate my money. We've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, my wife and I also do it through Jude. So a lot of the money, and I don't know if all the players do it. I'm sure that some of them do it, but it's almost like it's extra money. It's, our playing days were whenever they were and whatever, but it really is nice to be able to know that you're helping somebody when it's Tunnel to Towers or Jude, that you're giving somebody an opportunity. And these people, the money that they get donated to them from individuals really goes to the individuals. So I think it's really important. That's why I try to push the Cameo and the Past Pros thing. It's not for me. It's for the people out there.
Yeah. Tunnels to Towers is an incredible organization, and kudos to you for being involved with them and what they do with police and fire and military and their families. Really remarkable. So kudos to them and kudos to you. How about we get to some social media messages and see what you think, okay?
Let's see what they got.
All right. I just can tell you right now, I'm going to blast this one, okay?
I like it.
But it's for you. It was in your social media. It was not sent to me or I would have blasted already. This is from Robert Albano, and it came in this morning. Wally, can you tell today's New York Mets had to kick ass like you guys did in 86?
Well, Robert, I would tell Robert that I see a lot of signs of late in the season when they played the Braves. I see a lot of signs that they're similar. I don't know if they're as good a team, and I know they don't have as good a pitching, but you just never know what's going to happen in this game, because you know what? You talk about what happened last year with Texas and Arizona, 5 and 6 seeds. Texas probably shouldn't have been the 5th or 6th seed, or the 5th seed, because they were in first place the whole time. But you just never know what's going to happen in this game. And when you're hot, and let's go Mets, Robert.
Yeah, the only thing I will say to this, Wally, is look, we all hope the Mets win tonight, right? And if you can do anything, if you got a connection to God, use it. Okay, do whatever you got to do. But I will tell you this, unless they play really atrociously and shit the bed tonight and humiliate themselves, I have no complaints about this year. I said at the beginning of the year, I thought they'd fight for the wild card, and they got off to a miserable start, but to their credit, they got off the deck. And then, Wally, if you still think if the Mets lose, it won't be because of anything that has anything to do with effort. I also agree with you. I think the 86 team had a lot more talent, frankly, especially in the pitching. But this team gives you everything they have. And I listen, we all want to win. We hate to lose. I understand that. But I do not question unless and that's not going to happen. They're going to fight to the last out. They've already proven it. And I'm not going to have any complaints about this season. Of course, I want to go on and keep playing and play the Phillies especially. But, Wally, I don't think this team lacks for any intestinal fortitude like the 86 team. I don't think it lacks for heart, for want to, for effort. I think they sacrifice for each other. I don't think they're as talented as you guys were, but I think this team is a guts team, and I think we'll see it tonight, and I think they're going to win, Wally. I'll put it to you that way. I think the Mets will win tonight, and we'll go on to play the Phillies in the next series. What say you?
I like the idea. Bruce, what a lot of people don't understand, even in the baseball world, that they don't give enough credit to chemistry. And these players are united and they play hard together. There's no doubt. And chemistry goes a long ways. You have to have talent to win. They do have talent. They got a great lineup. Pitching is a little suspect when you get into the big series, when you're matched up against the number ones, number twos. But I've said it before. The number 5 guy can beat the number 1 guy sometimes because he steps up. So, they have it internally. The Mets have it internally what they need to do, and they've overcome a lot of things so far this year. And you know what? We've seen the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're the 6th ranked team in the playoffs, which is last, I believe, last year, to the Mets, which are 6th, and they still got to the World Series. So, and Texas was 5th, and so they could beat teams at any time when you're hot. And you know what? The Mets are hot right now. They're going to win tonight. I'll be disappointed if they don't, but I believe they're going to win, and they're going to go on. And I think the fucking New York Mets can beat the Philadelphia Phillies.
Oh, listen. And you know this because we talk a lot off the air. I fucking hate the Philadelphia. I hate them more than the Yankees, man. So I desperately want to see it. But look, kudos to Milwaukee. That's a quality team. I'm familiar. I covered Pat Murphy with the ASU Sun Devils when he managed, or I guess they call them coaches, not managers. He's a good manager. He's a good tactician. He earns the players' respects. He's tough, but he's fair. Milwaukee's is great competition. It's going to take everything we have tonight.
No. Pat Murphy's a great guy. We managed against each other in AAA when I was in Vegas, and he used to play by playing for peanuts in his clubhouse when I'm screaming and yelling and all those guys. And before you knew it, Pat Murphy was the interim manager in San Diego, and he went with Council, who I believe that he coached at Arizona State, and Craig gave him an opportunity, and Pat's done a great job, but he's a great guest to have on this show at some times because he's not only funny, but he's a very smart person.
No doubt.
So,
here's what I totally agree with, Wally. I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's going to be exciting tonight to see what happens.
Yeah. I don't think I'll sit for one moment. Now, here's one I almost totally agree with. This is from Don Garafola. Wally, talking about the first game of the doubleheader, second most exciting game after Game 6. Now, Wally, I will say this. I don't think that World Series where you and Boston played was all that great. Okay? Yeah, there were great moments. Game 6, obviously. I thought the series against the Astros was the best playoff series I've ever seen. I don't know how you could ever top that. Now, if you tell me Game 6 against the Astros, that's the best baseball game I have ever seen. And that Game 1 doubleheader against Atlanta, it's right there, Wally. I mean, it is right there.
It is, even though it was a matter of the Mets getting to the postseason, the way that they came back in the 8th and 9th or 7th, 8th, whatever 2 innings those were. really showed the character of the team. What we did in Game 6 was in the playoffs. The Atlanta series was not in the playoffs, but it showed the heart and determination, I think, of the players to get to the postseason. When they fell behind and then they had the big runs in the 8th, and Atlanta comes back and goes ahead, and Diaz basically shit the bed, and for Mendoza to run him back out there in the 9th inning, it was amazing. And that's why I don't think we've seen Mendoza the last couple of days, or not Mendoza, but Diaz in the last couple of days, because how many pitches he's thrown. But you got to have confidence in guys, and you win and lose. You win and lose most games with your bullpen. And the one thing that I gave Carlos credit for is he's stuck with those guys, those 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guys. And I think that you have to do that to show the confidence. If it doesn't work this year, then you make a change. But, so far, so good. And let's go Mets tonight.
All right, so let me ask you, if you were managing this Mets, would you have thrown Diaz? I have to tell you, I never would have put Diaz back out there. That is a major balls move by Mendoza. Would you have put Diaz back out there for the 9th inning?
I think I would have. I mean, we paid this gentleman a lot of money. I know that he was hurt all year last year. But I don't know what the choices really were. But, I know that what I've seen is he really wanted the ball, and he felt important. And, the 8th inning and the 9th inning was a shitty pitcher, and the 9th inning was a great pitcher. So, hopefully he can turn the page. I know that as a player, if you miss a whole year, which I never did as a player, it's a big turnaround to come back to compete at that highest level. And, hopefully when you look at Diaz's numbers, they're not terrible. They're not great. But could he make an improvement going forward? I think as a New York Met fan, you got to hope that he does make an improvement forward.
All right, last one, and then because I want to ask you a question off of this. This is from, and I hope I pronounce it correct, Cryostory Sulabani, I believe it is. And if I butchered your name, I apologize. It said, quote, "These lads are giving me heart palpitations." Wally, is it harder for you as a player or a manager to sit through these games?
It's hard as a fan, a player, and as a manager, because your heart's thumping. As a player, you try to act calm. As a manager, you have to be calm. And as a fan, you're going crazy because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yes.
So it's hard in every aspect. There's no doubt. I've told my coaches managing when we've been in the playoffs and in the championship, show no emotion. We cannot let these players see that we're excited or we don't know what's going to happen. So don't show emotion. Players show the emotion. The fans show the emotion. That's the way the game's supposed to be. So, Christoria, that's my answer. And I probably crushed your name, but that's my answer, my friend.
Yes, and you're absolutely correct. Palpitations is a very good word. All right, again, if you want to get a hold of Wally on social media, we like to all are read and some are aired. So keep them coming. On Facebook, it's at Wally Backman. On X, Wally_Backman 6. Instagram, it's at Wally Backman it's at Wally_Backman 86. On YouTube, youtube.com/The Wally Backman Show, and on email, thewallybackmanshow@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can also find Wally with Past Pros if you want some memorabilia signed, or if you want to send a message to a loved one, or just have some fun, which is what somebody did to me. You can find him on Cameo, and much of the proceeds gets donated to a couple of organizations, namely Tunnels to Towers. Wally, we got some last licks to get in. Are you ready to do it? All right, it's last licks time. One of our favorite segments, of course, because Wally and I get our final shots and our final praises in. And Wally, I really don't know. The one thing that got my goat concerning the Mets, some articles written about J.D. Martinez, who finished the season horribly. I think like 0 for 34. But Wally, and you know this is a player. You know this is a manager. And I know you don't discount these things. Intangibles. I don't give a shit if J.D. Martinez is 0 for the world. He is in my dugout. He is in my clubhouse. And he's on my bench every game. Because that guy is a package of intangibles that these young players look up to. And I don't care. And by the way, he proved that he's still got more thunder in that bat. Give me your thoughts on possibly leaving J.D. Martinez off of the playoff roster.
There's no question. There's no way you could leave this guy off the playoff roster. I don't care what anybody says. And you're exactly right. With his intangibles, he's a force off the bench. He's a force when he plays. He has power. He can change the game. Everybody goes through a slump. And you're right. He was 0 for 30-something going into the Milwaukee series before they went and played Atlanta to confirm their postseason appearance, and he got a hit in it there, and he got a big hit in Atlanta. This is a guy that young players look up to, which unfortunately, as a fan, we're looking at everything. But this guy is such a value to the New York Mets, and Bruce, we've talked about this in other posts that we've done or other podcasts that we've done, the difference between this team becoming a really good team. I really, really believe Martinez, Vientos, and Iglesias were the three main ingredients that Stern put in there to make this team a different team, to change the chemistry and all those things. But J.D. Martinez I know he's 34 or 35, but his presence in that clubhouse, in that dugout, is unmatchable for a lot of players.
Totally agree. I look at him a little bit like the Rusty Staub, just the guy you want around. You just want him around because he's a winner. The guy is a winner. And the thought of leaving him off the playoff roster is absurd, obscene, and ridiculous to me.
No, 100% it's absurd. If people thought that they should lead him off, if it's the media, I don't care who it is, if they thought they were going to leave him off the roster, it would have been devastating to the New York Mets, and they wouldn't be playing their final game tonight against Milwaukee with a chance to move on and play the Philadelphia Phillies, I believe, if a guy like J.D. Martinez was not in that dugout.
All right, you got a couple of last licks. I'll turn it over to you. What do you got?
No, I got a couple of things. I know that we mentioned about Pete Rose, and I just want to give the biggest condolences to his family. I knew Pete very well. One of the first players that gave me a reel up when I dove into first base one time on a bunt hit when I believe Pete was with the Reds or the Phillies at the time. And he said, "I love the style that you play." But, Pete and I did an appearance here. I don't know. It wasn't that long ago, but just to talk to Pete and know what type of guy this guy was. A lot of people in the commissioner's office and things, they don't know how good a guy this guy was. Yeah, it's a shame, and I would just wish that better things would have happened. I seen a video of Pete saying, if he died, that he didn't want to go into the Hall of Fame, but he shouldn't have died, and he should have been in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, a long, long time ago. But again, I just want to do my condolences to his family. There's other things that I wanted to talk about in last licks. Hey, hunting season. I'm leaving to go hunting tomorrow, so it's a big thing for me. Bruce, and I also want people.
What do
to
you hunt
know
for,
that,
Wally? What do you hunt for?
well, it's deer hunting. Deer hunting starts on Saturday, and then I got to go to New York for a few days and do a couple appearances, and then I'll be back home and do some elk hunting. And I do that with my son mainly. My daughter, actually, Tasha, uh, who works for us and does things off on the side for us. A funny story about Tasha is that I came home one year and she says, "Dad, I want to hunt." And I said, "What? You want to hunt? You're a girl. You're not going to want to hunt." So I came home and
That's a
the next thing I know is she shot a really nice buck the first year that we hunted together. And I've been proud of her ever since because I told her, "You got to shoot a little bit over the back of this." And it was a big buck. And the first shot she took, she missed. She says, "Dad, I shot over the top of it." I said, "Tosh, you just do what you got to do." And the next shot was a perfect shot. So I look forward to that. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that people go out and hunt, and I could have arguments with them for weeks and weeks. But that's one of my biggest moments when that happened. And I do have one more thing I want to say, and I want to ask you a question, Bruce.
Okay.
I want people to know the Arizona Diamondbacks were the 6th seed last year, and they went to the World Series. And the New York Mets are the 6th seed this year. Arizona didn't win, but there's always a chance. You never know who's going to win. Texas was the 5th seed, but they were in first place last year for all the way up until the last day of the season, I think, and they ended up being the 5th seed. So the way that this is the question I want to ask you is, what do you think of this the playoff format, Bruce?
Oh, I got a lot of thoughts here, but I'll condense it. Number one, I like it better than the 1-game wild card. And I didn't hate that, but I like this a little better. Here's what I don't like about it. I wouldn't want to be on a team that has a bye. I want to keep playing, man. I've said this. I use the Colorado Rockies as the perfect example. In 2004, man, they finished the season. They won like 35 of their last 40 games. They rolled through. There was no wild card. They rolled through the divisional series. I forget who they beat. They beat the living daylights out of the Diamondbacks 4 straight. Then they had a week off. And all their momentum stopped. And now perhaps they still lose to the Red Sox. That was a great Red Sox team. Overcame an 0-3 deficit against the Yankees. Kurt Schilling and all that stuff. So I don't know that they beat them anyway, but I don't think they get swept. Wally, this to me is a product of the fans' greed and the owners' greed. And here's what I mean. The expanded playoffs is large money for the owners. Okay, nobody denies that. But it's also on the fans because the more you see, they want more teams in the playoffs because somehow if the billboard says playoffs, but they've kind of done it to themselves. They've discounted the regular season. The only way they can change it now, Wally, is to add 2 more teams. You mentioned this to me, so expand on this. They would have to add 2 more teams so nobody has a bye. And if you add 2 more teams in each league, then you would have 16 of the 30 teams making the postseason. So you're playing 162 games to eliminate less than half the league. And I just think that's absurd.
No, I agree, Bruce, 100%. The way that baseball has gone, it is about the fans and it is about the ownership making more money. But why is the season 162 games if you're going to add all these teams? I think back to when I was with the New York Mets, we'd have been in the postseason. Everybody says that we should have won more championships and things like that. But you know what? We went from 84 through 88 where we would have been in the postseason if we were playing under these circumstances. So,
Yes,
that's
sir.
a lot of years that's how you create a dynasty. But, it's the game's a funny thing. And, you want to do what the fans want. Most importantly, ownership is a little bit greedy, I think. But, that's the way the game has changed It's one of the small pieces that the game has changed. And you know what? So be it. It keeps the cities involved. There's good, there's bad. I wish they had that format when I played, but they don't. So, with that being said, my last thing to say is today, Thursday, let's go Mets.
I'm right with you. We'll end it right there because I'm doubling down on that. And hopefully when we come to you next week, where we got big smiles and games against those rotten, miserable, satanic Phillies. Yes, I said satanic, okay? All right, Wally, I know you played there, Wally. The fans should be stuck in cages like they do in Europe with soccer. Okay, they're animals. We need to beat them. We can, and Milwaukee can't. So that's my final word.
Let's go Mets.